So welcome to another brilliant edition of the Electronic Cafe. In this one, Mark and I are going to be looking at the incredible Pet Shop Boys, particularly their first two albums that really catapulted them to become arguably the most successful synth-pop duo of all time. We're also then going to be following that up with some rather brilliant hot stuff music recommendations to really make your ears happy. Before we jump into all that though, just want to make a couple of announcements. So obviously we've got our first major gig coming up at the Walter Rats in King's Cross next March 25th. Three amazing bands, National Milk Bar, Cult with No Name, Beautiful Machines, all playing to make your ears really happy. So get yourselves tickets for that while you can. I'll ask Mark to put a link up. They are selling out pretty quickly now. So say get them now while you can, because we really want you to come along, see three great bands and come and have a drink with Mark and myself. It'd be great to see you there.
To break the suburban spell. Let's take a ride along with the dogs tonight in suburbia. You
Let's talk about the Pet Shop Boys. I kind of just thinking about them the other day, and Mark made a suggestion about that. Let's just talk about their first two albums. They're massive. Obviously, they're an English synth-pop duo formed in '81 from London, Neil and Chris. They've sold more than 50 million records worldwide and have been listed as the most successful duo in UK music history, apparently in the 1999 edition of the Guinness Book of Records. 3-time Brit Award winners, 6-time Grammy nominees. Since '84, they've achieved 42 top 30 singles, 22 of those being top 10, including 4 UK number ones. West End Girls was obviously a number one in the UK and on the US Billboard 100. It's the Scene, Always on My Mind and Heart. Other hit songs include a cover of Go West, Opportunities, Let's Make Lots of Money, What Have I Done to Deserve This, in a duet with Dusty Springfield. They did that with 5 US top 10 singles in the 80s. They've kind of been very much associated with the second wave of the British invasion. At the 2009 Brit Awards, the Pet Shop Boys received an Outstanding Contribution Award to Music. In 2016, Billboard magazine named the Pet Shop Boys the #1 dance duo group over the 40 years since the chart's inception in 1976. The duo also received NME's Godlike Genius Award in 2017. I mean, you know, these guys have just absolutely kicked the shit out of it in terms of awards, record sales, recognition, and rightly so. Saying it goes way back for when Neil and Chris met in a hi-fi shop in Kings Road in Chelsea, and I think it was '81. Funny enough, it was Neil that purchased a Korg MS-10 synth, which sparked a conversation with Chris, and they both realised they had a massive mutual interest in disco and electronic music, and obviously became friends. They shared a love of 2 massive electro-pop records back in the day, Souvenir by the brilliant OMD and Bedsitter by Soft Cell, and that kind of reflected their lifestyles at the time. And according to Tennant, or Neil, he and Chris would listen to pioneers of electronic music, so OMD, Soft Cell, but also Kraftwerk, the Human League, and the equally brilliant Depeche Mode. So yeah, they really had an ear for stuff and had a real connection from the very, very start.
Signed to EMI Parlophone, Neil and Chris set out their stall pretty early to be one of the greatest synth-pop bands ever, something that their record sales, awards, recognition and accolades received in the last nearly 40 years suggest that they have achieved. Their style and appearance is a very British highbrow brand of pop music, clever, arty and somewhat detached and ambivalent to their success. well known for standing still in their performances, which in itself was a deliberate reaction to the hyper-cheerful music that was around at the same time. Famously, before Pet Shop Boys, Neil Tennant was a journalist and an assistant editor of the smash hits UK pop magazine, so it really was a case of poacher turned gamekeeper for him.
I'm going to hand over to my good buddy Mark to tell you about their very first album. Mark, over to you, buddy.
Please was a debut album released in 1986 by the Pet Shop Boys. Please is a collection of immaculately crafted and seamlessly produced synth pop, and the Pet Shop Boys' debut album sketches out the basic elements of the duo's sound. It contains the brilliant singles West End Girls, Love Comes Quickly, and the intentionally crass opportunities Let's Make Lots of Money, and of course the brilliant Suburbia. It could be argued that two further songs, Tonight Is Forever and Why Don't We Live Together, were also good enough to have been huge hit singles. The debut single, West End Girls, was released twice as a single. The first version was produced by Bobby Orlando in 1984, which became a club hit in the US and a minor European hit, but it was the classic, re-recorded Stephen Hague version from this album that they are well known for. In fact, there are Bobby Orlando recorded versions for numerous songs that appeared on the first two Pet Shop Boys albums.
Sometimes you're better off dead. There's a gun in your hand, it's pointing at your head. You think you're mad, too unstable, kicking in chairs and knocking down tables in a restaurant in a West End town. Call the police, there's a madman around, running down underground to a dive bar in a West End town. In a West End town, a dead end world. The East End boys and West End girls.
As an album, Please is musically simpler than their later work, but lyrically rich, driven by cold melodic keyboard riffs and pulsing drum machines and bass lines. The lyrics were considered androgynous and the stories they contained being equally ambiguous. The album also had appearances by Andy McKay playing saxophone on Love Comes Quickly, and our friend JJ Jexelic on Suburbia with the crazy car crashes, machine guns, fires and dogs storming down the streets, all accompanying the best hooks on the album. It's hard not to like. There are numerous reasons to like Please. It set the Pet Shop Boys on their way to being serious contenders for the greatest synth pop band from the 80s, and it was just their first album. And if you ever wondered why it was called Please, well, the Pet Shop Boys simply wanted people to ask for Pet Shop Boys Please. Typically British and polite, like the Pet Shop Boys themselves. Go check it out, please.
We're out again, another night. I never have enough. It will be like this forever if we fall in love. Tonight is forever. Tell me now you don't disagree. Tonight is forever. Sometimes you're better off dead. There's a gun in your hand that's pointing at your head. You think you're mad, too unstable, kicking in chairs and knocking down tables in a restaurant in a West End town. Call the police, there's a madman around, running down underground to a dive bar in a West End town. In a West End town, a dead end world, with the East End boys and West End girls. But I don't believe that it's true, 'cause when you least expect it, waiting round the corner for you. Love comes quickly, whatever you do, you can't stop falling. Love comes quickly. I've had enough of scheming and messing around with jerks. My car is parked outside, I'm afraid it doesn't work. I'm looking for a partner, someone who gets things fixed. Ask yourself this question, do you want to be rich? I've got the brains, you've got the looks. Let's make lots of money. I may not always love you, you may not care, but if we should live together, there's something we could share if we dare. Why don't we live together? We won't believe in love until he is the head boy. delays in your intentions, night and day, and you wait till later tonight.
Thanks, Mark. So, second album, actually, my God, the history that this album's created in terms of records and stuff is incredible. So let me run this by you. In 2005, Musical Reference Book, 1001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die. This is featured in it and has been recognised in various other must-listen lists. So in 2006, Q Magazine placed the album at number 22 in its list of the 40 best albums of the 80s, right? Of all the albums that came out in the 80s. Yeah, this was in the top 30. In 2012, Slant Magazine listed the album at number 88 in its list of the best albums of the 80s. In 2020, Rolling Stone placed it at number 435 on the list of the 500 greatest albums of all time. You know, let's just think about it. Out of the the albums that Rolling Stone said were the 500 greatest albums of all time, this was in it. You think of the thousands and thousands and thousands of albums that have been made. Incredible accolade. The album actually spawned 4 UK top 10 singles. It's a Scene, Rent, What Have I Done to Deserve This, and a duet with fellow phone artist Dusty Springfield, which peaked at number 2 in both the UK and US, and led to a massive resurgence. I remember this clearly, Dusty Springfield's earlier work. And another UK number 1 in April 88 with a remix version of the song Heart. This is filled with timeless hits. If you haven't heard it, check it out, because you know you just can't go back to some of the Pet Shop Boys stuff and you just realise how brilliant they are or were and still are. If you know it, just come back and revisit an old friend. You know, this is just a glorious album, and can see why it's got its place in history. Absolutely worth checking out.
On the radio, hit music. On the radio, when you dance with me, we dance forever. All night long to your favorite hit music. On the radio, no matter when or where or who has one thing in common too. It's a sin. It's a sin. Everything I've ever done, everything I ever do, every place I've ever been. I bought you drinks, I brought you flowers, I read your books and talked for hours. Every day so many drinks, such pretty flowers. So tell me, what have I done to deserve this? What have I done to deserve this? What have I?
Since you went away, I've been hanging around. I've been wondering why.
And look at the two of us in sympathy with everything we see. I never want anything, it's easy. Buy whatever I need. But look at my hopes, look at my dreams. The currency we've spent. I love you, you pay my rent. Something happens to me, like a chain reaction between you and me. My heart starts missing a beat. My heart starts missing a beat every time. Every time. We check it with the city, then change the law. Are you looking forward? Now you want some more. We're SHOPPING, we're shopping.
So welcome to another Hot Stuff section where we're looking at some great new albums your ears really should be checking out to make them very happy. The first album I want to talk about is the rather brilliant Blush by PVA. I happened to see these guys on Jules Holland just recently, and I did pick up some stuff on YouTube and just thought, I'm really liking these guys. So a couple of years ago, they sort of displayed their enormous electronic potential. They had an EP called Toner. They've now returned to the forefront of the scene with this amazing head blast of a debut. Blush consists of songs that I think were mostly written throughout lockdown, and obviously when live music as we know it came to a halt for more than a year. The opener on this album, Untethered, highlights warped sounds that one would expect in sort of techno clubs of Berlin, with chord changes that tear the groove into a new level of euphoria. The change between electronic drum sounds and the recorded takes of other band member Louis Satchel's skills on a live drum set just create an awesome drum sound throughout and rhythmic sound throughout. The synth soundscapes are so bright on Hero Man, and it's quite a perplexing track, really. By Ella Harris, who's a singer instrumentalist, sort of evocative chanting of can't eat, can't sleep, can't go to work, can't leave. I say this is a track they did on Jules recently. It's a great moment in the album, and Ella shares the vocal sort of duties with the fellow singer and instrumentalist Josh Baxter, who talks about his troubles with anxiety on a track called Bunker. It's kind of a gloomy synth-pop track, but it builds its energy on really good melodies. And then the pressure kind of bursts with one of the most intense endings on the record. I think another highlight is Bad Dad. It's got great dreamy synths that cut through with a kind of massive mono bass, which just tears brilliantly through the whole production of that track from start to finish. And, Harris delves into the subject of toxic masculinity and its effects on surrounding subjects with a sound reminiscent of other spoken word lyricists, such as the guy from Yard Act or Florence Shaw of Dry Cleaning. I think throughout this album, it just feels like you're waking up on the most ecstatic of dance floors with a choice of either getting swept away in the feverish and entrancing grooves, or just to collapse and surrender to the nightmarish aspects of its ambience. PVA are really bringing, with so many other great new artists, the electronic scene right smack back to the forefront of more listeners' attention, just where it belongs. A stunning album, well worth checking out. Hope you enjoy it. As I say, it's Blush by the rather brilliantly talented PVA.
First Hot Stuff album choice is this, True North by a-ha. True North is the 11th studio album by a-ha, and while a-ha have remained in existence for many years after the initial success, this new album finds the music has matured. The DNA may sound the same, but there's more sophistication embedded in the lyrics rather than the youthful exuberance of the past. It is well documented that in these days a-ha have established a personal and artistic chemistry, a working relationship, a relationship to accommodate three strong personalities that have little in common outside of the band. The album was recorded 55 miles above the Arctic Circle with the Norwegian Arctic Philharmonic Orchestra. Half of these 12 tracks were composed by guitarist Pal and the other half by keyboardist Magna, with each man producing his own work. But of course it is Morten Harkett's falsetto voice which makes the songs sound distinctly a-ha, one of the most recognisable voices in the last 40 years. True, a-ha are long past producing a pop album, but True North is a grown-up pop record, chock full of beautifully written songs, sonic evolution and creativity, all about northern living, the environment and how the band's surrounding habitat has shaped the sound of their music. True North is subdued but still tuneful, anthemic, even jazzy at times, reminiscent to me of some of their early album tracks. I'm loving this album more and more each time I play it. Do go check it out, it's worth it.
Highly unusual, you might say, as if, like a shirt worn thin through the years, I let you down the moment I dared. I can assure you that won't happen.
And my final hot stuff recommendation for this episode, unfortunately, isn't in physical format right now, not on vinyl, so I can't sit here and hold it like I normally do. So you have to bear with me on this, but the album's so good, I need to talk to you about it anyway. One of our EC friends popped a message up on our Facebook page talking about this band called Unify Separate and their album Music Since Tomorrow. I checked it out and I was like, whoa. It's the Scottish-Swedish pairing of Andrew Montgomery from Geneva, who's a band I used to love. I've got one of their albums somewhere, and Leo Josephson of Lowe, and this is their second album together. I know they impressed a lot of people with their 2019 debut album. It combines sort of soaring vocal aspects of British Indian along with some Nordic synth. This album's been influenced by the worldwide pandemic and unfortunately Montgomery's own sort of heartache following the end of a relationship. So Music Since Tomorrow looks at the future in a pretty uncertain world. As a result, there's a touch more density in the sound than the previous album, and it's augmented with a bit more guitar. I think the album also benefits from Josephson's intense study of music theory and studio reinvention since lockdown, so he's kind of grown in his technique since the first album. There's this kind of sounds of a personal struggle in the opening track Closure. It's the album opener. It sets the scene with a building atmospheric trance tune that simply induces eargasms from the off, especially when Montgomery hits his brilliant falsetto. And then, he's got this just incredible voice. There's like a mix of Depeche Mode meeting Muse with before bursting with some great synth sounds. Solitude 9 morphs from a drum and bass lilt into a blistering attack. Montgomery doesn't, let up with his inspired delivery, for reflecting his isolation and unsettlement. You can really feel it. There's a track on there which was released, I think, in 2021, and one of the best songs that year, I thought, the astounding Embrace the Fear, and that kind of touches on crisis at a life sort of crossroads. Despite its emotive melancholy, it possesses a defiant motivational message. And then there's the rhythm electronic rock of The Void that sees Richard Oakes and Suede do a masterful guitar turn with kids' voices saying, "Where are you?" like a haunting journey into kind of some strange world, but it's layered with New Order type strings, which just really just give it another dimension. It's a darker, more indie sounding album than the debut that they did. But Music Since Tomorrow is swathed in expressions of emotional conflict, anxiety and self-doubt. But there is still a lot of light sprinkled all over that. And despite all the previous sorrows, I think Unify Separate provided a stunning album of glorious synth rock pop to drown in. And it is worth going on that journey. So I would say, Unify Separate and the rather brilliant Music Since Tomorrow. You can get it on Bandcamp as a download only for now, but I do believe there's a CD coming. Guys, please bring it out on vinyl. It deserves it. I hope you all like it. When you check it out, let me know what you think.
Two Hot Stuff album choices this time are dominated by big releases from established artists, meaning my second Hot Stuff album choice is Simple Minds' 18th studio album, Direction of the Heart, their first album of new material since 2018's Walk Between Worlds. With Direction of the Heart, Simple Minds are back at their confident, anthemic best. It is an inspirational celebration of life, mixing the essence of both the past and the present Simple Minds, a band who over the last 10 years have recaptured the swagger and critical praise of their early days. Unable to come to the UK due to the COVID lockdown, it was an album written, created and demoed in Sicily, where both Jim Kerr and Charlie Birchall live, and then formally recorded in Hamburg's Chameleon Studios. According to the album notes, Direction of the Heart features fewer musicians than any previous Simple Minds album, with Charlie Birchall on guitars, most keyboards and most bass guitars, as well as programming much of the drumming, which is probably why the album evokes a feel of the earlier records, because it was written like the early records. Check out Vision Thing, First You Jump or Solstice Kiss. Even Russell Mao from Sparks makes an appearance on the track Human Traffic. Jim Kerr said they wanted to make a feel-good electro-rock record during the very worst of times. Job done. Love this album. 100% go check the album out. It's worth it. Simple Minds really are back.
And as the skies above turn to crimson and hear the memories, all you said, I calling you. No matter what you put me through. First you jump, then get wings, escaping all that hurt you. The trauma.
Also, if you like this t-shirt that I'm wearing, it's now available in 4 colours. You might have seen me wearing the dark blue one in a previous episode. It's also available in white, which Mark wore in the last show, and also in the cool pink. Our friends Favour the Brave asked to do the design for us and put them on their site, so we're really pleased that they're kind of doing that for us. Thank you guys. It's really cool. And finally, our friends at Blitz magazine. This has come hot off the press. Everything you need in a magazine in terms of bands of the past that we'd like to talk about on this show as well, and also all new music that you really need to get into to make your ears happy. And I'm really pleased to say that we're contributing to this magazine with some sort of recommendations ourselves. So thank you, Tom at Blitzed. A great magazine. If you really love your music, that's one of the reasons you're on this show. But again, if you love your music, read this magazine. It is brilliant.
Thanks for watching Electronic Cafe, and we'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye bye.